everyone.
Fire at the Supreme Court complex. Justice Minister says no damages to case files or archives. Sri Lanka Air Force training aircraft crashes in Kantale. Training pilot killed. Specialist committee appointed to assess the possibility of ordering the COVID-19 vaccine to Sri Lanka. Will travel restrictions be imposed during the festive season?
යම් ප්‍රදේශයක ජනතාවගේ කැපවීම මත තමයි ඒ ප්‍රදේශ වැහෙනවද ඇරෙනවද කියලා තීරණය වෙන්නේ.
Main sponsor.
Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. On to your top story for this evening. Earlier today, a fire erupted at the Supreme Court complex. However, by now, the fire has been completely controlled and doused.
The fire erupted at the basement of the Supreme Court complex at around 4:30 this evening. 9 fire trucks from the Colombo Municipal Council were deployed to contain the fire. The fire has not damaged the records room or any other property of the Supreme Court. The fire had erupted at a location where garbage from the court complex was dumped. The smoke had spread across the premises. We were able to continue conducting the activities of the ministry and the court as usual. The Honourable Chief Justice, the Honourable Attorney General and senior police officers inspected the site after the fire was doused. The fire has been contained. The Criminal Investigations Department is investigating the incident. Smoke engulfed the premises of the court complex. Steps have been taken to remove the smoke from the area. We believe that by tomorrow morning, we will be able to remove the smoke from the area completely. The Chief Justice has said the activities of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal can resume from tomorrow.
ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණය සහ අභ්‍යාචනාධිකරණයේ කටයුතු ආරම්භ කිරීමට සුපුරුදු පරිදි ආරම්භ කිරීමට හැකියාවක් තිබෙනවා.
Now, following the blaze at the Supreme Court complex, former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe arrived at the Supreme Court complex to assess the situation. On to some tragic news. A PT-6 training aircraft of the Sri Lanka Air Force crashed today, killing a trainee pilot in the process.
The aircraft, which took flight from the Air Force base in China Bay, Trincomalee, had crashed in close proximity to the Janaranjana Vava in Suryapura, Kantale. Ground control had lost contact with the aircraft at around 1:15 p.m. According to the Air Force, the aircraft had crashed 14 nautical miles away from the China Bay Air Force base. Trainee pilot Shalin Damrakon lost his life in this accident.
මෙම අනතුරින් යානයේ පියාස
The Air Force salvation teams and the medical teams arrived at the scene of the crash immediately and transported the pilot to the Trincomalee hospital. It was confirmed at the hospital that the pilot succumbed to his injuries. The pilot who flew the plane during the time of the crash, Cadet Officer Amarakon KRSCB, lost his life in the crash. Air Force Commander Air Marshal Sudarshana Pathirana appointed a special investigation team to further investigate the crash. This crash has not caused any damage to the public or public property.
මෙම අනතුර හේතුවෙන් මහජනතාවට හෝ කිසිදු මහජන දේපලකට හානියක් සිදු වී නොමැත.
The deceased trainee pilot is an old boy of Kegol Mahavidyalaya. While he began his cadet training in January 2019, he commenced his pilot training in July that year.
Main sponsor.
Legends 966 this season. A collection of the most memorable songs, Christmas hits and family favorites 24/7. Tune in now.
Do your online shopping now with Sambole.lk to get it home delivered or pick up on your way.
Sambole.lk.
Newsfirst has been on the forefront of reporting the plight of those in Sri Lanka, be it urban, suburban or rural. As such, we have decided to prioritize the plight of our own people on our news bulletin tonight. While COVID-19 continues to plague the lives of those in urban Sri Lanka, the lives of those in rural Sri Lanka have been disrupted and put at risk. Among the many tragedies suffered by those in rural Sri Lanka, wild elephant encroachments, the Sena caterpillar menace and the ongoing drought have taken center stage.
People living on a daily wage are hardest hit by an economy ailing due to the onset of COVID-19. However, farmers are a defiant group who refuse to back down in the face of adversity. One consequence of a global pandemic is an inevitable famine. Past tragedies bear testament to it. But our resilient farmers took matters to their own hands to cultivate fallow lands, even barren lands, determined to safeguard the nation from a famine. Residents of Kajuwatta and other farming colonies of the Dimbulagala Pradeshiya Sabha hail from a proud lineage of farmers. This community, which sources water from seasonal rains, only cultivate one season annually. Farming is their livelihood, and all their dreams, ambitions and expectations rely on the success of their harvest. But the emergence of a pest, a caterpillar, has thrown all their dreams and expectations into jeopardy. In excess of 3,000 acres of maize have been damaged by the Sena caterpillar or fall army worm, rendering the people helpless with mounds of debt to settle. Even though this village belongs to the Mahaveli Sea Zone, it does not possess a proper irrigation system. Providing such a system would certainly give these people a glimmer of hope for the future.
කජුවත්ත කියන ගම්මානයට වාරි කර්මාන්තයක් දුන්නා නම් අපේ මේ දරුවෝ නොමරා බඩිරුඟු වෙනුවට මඤ්ඤොක්ක බතල හරි හදලා අපට මේ දරුවෝන්ට කන්න දෙන්න.
This is the Bibila Madagama Divisional Secretariat of the Uva province. A number of villages in the area, including Dimbuldena, Alutvela and Kotabova, have been plagued by the Sena caterpillar menace. Residents lament that no amount of pesticides is sufficient to eradicate this pest. Farmlands in many areas, including Badulla, Polonnarua and Monaragala, have fallen prey to the Sena caterpillar.
ඊට අමතරව අපි බැංකු ලෝන් ගහලා කනකඩ ආභරණ තියලා මේ ඉරුඟු වගාවට අපි වියදම් කරලා තියෙන ගොඩාක් වියදම් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒත් මේ වගාව ගොඩාක් බොහෝ දුරට ගොඩාක්ම විනාශ වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපි බෙහෙත් එහෙම මේවට දාලා තියෙනවා. ඒත් මේක නතර වෙලා නැහැ තාම.
While on one hand, a caterpillar continues to destroy crops, marauding elephants continue to terrorize villagers on the other. Wild elephants constantly encroach on villages such as Tekkavatta, Sadasirigama, Delnagama, Mudunegama and Telhiriava in the Tamuttegama Divisional Secretariat. Residents of these villages endure sleepless nights to keep elephants away from their homes, their farms and their families.
අපිට යුද්ධය තියෙන කාලේ අපිට මෙහෙම කරදරයක් තිබ්බේ නෑ. යුද්ධය මේක මේ අලිත් එක්ක අපි යුද්ධයක් කරන්නේ. රායට නිදිය ගන්න බෑ ගස්පලවල වල අපි ඉන්නේ ගෑනු දරුවෝ මේ ගෙවල් වල. පොල් ගහේ ගොබේ හදලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ තියෙන ගොබේ හදලා මේකේ අර එන්න දෙයක් නෑ කරඬු වගේ තියෙන අර ඇතුලේ කෑල්ල කැඩුනාම ආයේ මේ පොල් ගහ එන්නේ නෑ. මේ පොල් ගහ හිටවන අපි රජයෙන් කියලා පොල් පැලයක්වත් මේ කිසිම සාහනයක් දීලා නෑ.
එක පැත්තකින් නිය ගියාම.
On one hand, there was a drought. This time around, the seeds were sowed late during the season. Since we did not receive rain on time, many areas with small reservoirs did not sow their fields this season. The Sena caterpillar came, then Corona came and affected the whole country. Then the cyclone came, floods, landslides, now airplanes are crashing. The children have no way of learning and the people have been affected on all fronts. The people have now begun to wonder if we have been cursed.
Local government bodies are one of the most well-equipped institutions to directly inquire into issues faced by the general public and solve them. However, the welfare of the people has taken a backseat while the members of the local government bodies squabble among themselves to solve issues in their budgets. When members of the Ambelipitia Urban Council convened for the council meeting today, they were informed that the budget for the year 2021 has been passed. The councillors who did not know how the budget has been passed had an altercation with the secretary of the council.
ඔබතුමා දෙලින් හිත ගන්න. වැරද්ද ඉස්සරහා මම වැරදි කරත් මම වැරදි කියලා ඔබතුමා කියන්න. මේ මන්ත්‍රීවරු වැරදි කරනවා නම් දූෂිතයි නම් දූෂිතයි කියලා ඔබතුමාට කියන අයිතියක් තියෙනවා. මේ සහගහන අපරාධ වලට ඔබතුමා නිලධාරීකෙක් සහයෝග දක්වන්න එපා. ඔබතුමාගේ නියතතාවය මේ කියන්නේ ලොකු අපරාධයකට මුල.
The councillors then staged a protest opposite the municipal council. Chairman of the Ambelipitia Urban Council, Lalit Gamage, said that the council convened at 12:30 this afternoon and the vote on the budget was taken while 4 councillors were in the chamber. He said that the budget was passed. He added that legal action will be taken against the councillors who obstructed the secretary of the council from carrying out his duties. The vote on the budget of the Ambalangoda Urban Council was due to be held today. The mayor of Ambalangoda had informed the councillors last night that the council will not convene today. However, a group of councillors who did not receive any such message had come for the council sessions today. The mayor of Ambalangoda had also arrived at the premises and said that the message was not communicated to a group of councillors owing to a mistake by the secretary of the council. The monthly meeting of the Balangoda Urban Council was held today. The budget that was presented by the chairman of the Urban Council was defeated at the special meeting of the council yesterday. When the council met today, the chairman handed over the chair to the deputy chairman and left the meeting. A group of opposition councillors had opposed this move. A tense situation arose when a councillor attempted to chair the meeting as the members of the council opposed the deputy chairman chairing the meeting. The budgets of the Balangoda Urban Council and the Ampara and Bandaravala local government bodies caused tense situations at these council meetings yesterday.
Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana says a grassroots development program headed by Basil Rajapaksa and Nama Rajapaksa has been launched. Infrastructure facilities in rural areas will be developed under the Vada Samaga Yali Gamata program, which is headed by Basil Rajapaksa. A special committee has been appointed to look into the incomes we generate and the funds allocated to individual ministries. Unlike the previous years, we will monitor the income and expenses and ensure that investments will be implemented effectively and on a timely basis. The Northwestern Province Development Committee meeting of the Vada Samaga Yali Gamata National Program was held in Kuliyapitiya today, headed by Basil Rajapaksa at the Wayamba University Auditorium.
We are at a critical juncture. If we make the wrong move, we will sink into a deeper crisis. If we make the right decisions, we will improve and succeed as a developed and self-sufficient nation. We urge the public to be fearless of change. Thinking differently got us into trouble and at times even behind bars. Various factions might accuse you of committing a wrong when you are innocent. My advice to everyone is do not be afraid. Such matters should not demotivate you. The President, Prime Minister and all ministers and state ministers are prepared to give priority to proposals that incorporate change.
Basil Rajapaksa expressed his views about Sri Lanka's economic situation.
We took over at a time the debt stock was at its highest and all the rating agencies and financial institutions were attempting to brand us as a bankrupt nation. Many predicted Sri Lanka to default on its debt repayments. However, until today, we have not defaulted on any debt obligation. We are confident that we will meet our debt obligations due next year.
Staying on the same topic relating to Sri Lanka's economy, according to the central bank, Sri Lanka's trade deficit during the first 10 months of the year has declined drastically. What are the reasons for this decline? Zeenat Musafir joins us from the newsroom.
The COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc not just in Sri Lanka but across the globe. How has Sri Lanka's economy performed during the first 10 months of this year? Now, according to central bank data, during the first 10 months of this year, the trade deficit has declined to $4.8 billion US. Now, if you take a look at exports and imports, exports declined by 16.7% to $8.2 billion US, and imports declined by 19.9% to $13.14 billion US. Dhananath, now, if we take a look at the trade deficit has declined against a backdrop where import restrictions have been imposed. Do you think this is the way to go? And the decline in the trade deficit, do you think it's sustainable?
Declining the trade deficit is a good thing, Zeenat, but how we have achieved it is what we have to reevaluate. There are two ways that you can bring down the trade deficit. One is by reducing the imports, and that's what we have done here. But when you reduce the imports, that has an impact on the quality of life of the people. What we actually have to do is you can reduce the trade deficit by increasing our exports, and that's where we have to do. If you look at the numbers, you can see our exports have declined, so as our imports have declined. But our imports have declined by 19% and our exports have declined by 16%. So there's a 3% gap between the declining rate, and that's where we have achieved a trade, a trade deficit better than the last year. But moving forward, this is not the sustainable way to keeping and minimizing it further. we have to improve our exports, Zina.
Now, if you take a look at the central bank statistics, Dannath, there has been a decline in imports in certain expenditure items, particularly in the crude oil. There's been a decline of $1.1 billion, which is a massive saving. Now, if you take a look at other items such as spices, if you take a look at maize and wheat, food and beverages, compared to 2020, compared to 2019, there has been an increase in imports, an increase of 11.7%. If you take dairy products, an increase in 9.1%. If you take a look at vegetables, there's been an increase of 18.1%. If you take a look at sugar and confectionery items, there has been a drastic increase of 45.7%. Now, against a backdrop where the government is advocating policies to make Sri Lanka a more self-sufficient country, do you think these import restrictions have supported those policies?
In terms of bringing the trade deficit down, Zina, there's an impact on the import controls. But if you look at the main reduction of our import bill is from fuel. That is mainly for two reasons. One is the fuel price has come down drastically because of the globally the fuel consumption has come down and the fuel prices have come down. At the same time, because of the COVID situation, our fuel consumption has come down because the mobility of the people have gone down drastically, but the fuel prices haven't come down compared to that. So that's one reason we have a saving about $1 billion from the fuel, and that's what is mainly impacting on bringing down our trade deficit. But the other side of the story is, Zeenat, when you have import controls and reduction in your imports, that will also have an effect on people, because they have to compromise the quality of life and the prices of the products will go up. And that's the challenge that we have to face. But at the same time, today's the global market is so competitive and interconnected. So imports and exports are two sides of the same coin. So when you bring down the imports, that will have an impact on exports as well, and that's what we have seen. At the same time, some of these commodities Sri Lanka cannot produce, cannot match the entire local demand by just producing it locally, and that's why I think there's also imports still with a condition of import controls imposed by the government from early this year.
Yes, Dannath. So if the restrictions are will also lead to increase in inflation.
Definitely, Zeenat, because there are two reasons that may cause the inflation. One is, of course, the prices will go up, that will impact. At the same time, when your money printing or when the money creation happens, that may also have an impact on the inflation. So I expect the inflation slightly to go up in the coming months because of the prices of the products, especially in the consumer basket, will go up, and ultimately the people have to shoulder that pressure.
Now, another area that I would like to focus on is foreign reserves. Now, we know that we had an ISB repayment in October, and after repaying the $1 billion, we are now left with $5.9 billion, which is the lowest level during the past 2 years. Now, if you take a look at this chart, Dannath, the reserve adequacy ratio, our 5.9 billion is way lower than the level of considered as the reserve adequacy. Do you think Sri Lanka has sufficient reserves to face a future economic shock that is apart from COVID-19?
That's one of the main challenges, Zeenat, that Sri Lanka has to face in the coming future, because we have about 4 billion to 5 billion debt servicing to be done in the upcoming year, and our reserves levels are at 5 billion, and not that all the reserves can be utilized, because some of the reserves may be in the gold form, and some of these reserves maybe have collateral as some of the swap agreements and some of the other financial commitments that we have taken. So that's one of the main challenges that we have. And the real challenge would be, since we have gone through a debt, through a sovereign credit rating downgrade by all three main rating agencies, one way to build the reserves is going back to the market and building up our reserves, borrowing more money from the financial markets. But it looks like it's difficult, because we have to pay steep discounts on our, if we will go for another debt issuing, because already our secondary market bonds are being traded at a steep discount.
So if that's the case, Dannath, what other options do we have to raise funds?
Yes, one option is, I think government is expecting a lot of foreign direct investments to flow in, especially for the port city and other investments projects, and that's one way of looking at it. And at the same time, our foreign remittances have increased from about 2.7%. But there are multiple scenarios or like predictions or assumptions under for foreign remittances, because one assumption is that people are sending more money because already the domestic people have impacted their livelihoods, so people are sending more money.
But foreign remittances have increased over the past few months. So do you not think that that would support inflows to Sri Lanka?
Definitely, that would support. The argument is, Zeenat, that would support, but for how long? If it's a real increase, that is good. But if people are sending, if they are sweeping all their money and coming back because there's job losses in Middle East as well, if that's the case, that could be a short-term increase. At the same time, some of the informal channels have now moved to the formal channels. That's one reason why maybe the foreign remittances have increased. Or the other possible reason is, since the local livelihoods have been lost, people are sending more money than the normal time. So those are the three assumptions.
Thank you very much, Dannath. And this is the external report of the Central Bank for the month of October and Sri Lanka's economic performance during the first 10 months of this year.
We thank Zeenat and Dananath for that comprehensive insight on Sri Lanka's trade deficit and other factors. With that, we move on to more local news. With the festive season upon us, is there a need to impose travel restrictions? We inquired from several parties regarding this.
The final meeting with regard to this is conducted 2 days ago. What we frequently brought up is the convenience of the public and the containment of the virus. Now today is the 15th, and as of yet a decision has not been made if we will lock down the country for Christmas and the New Year. There is an issue like this. If someone organizes a gathering and they do not inform the police or health authorities regarding it, and a COVID-19 infectee arrives at this gathering, then we will be forced to isolate that entire area. We believe that we will not have to make that decision. However, whether a place is isolated or not depends on the actions of the residents of that area. Just because the virus is within the community, it is not relevant to the definition of the term community spread. We have clear evidence to support the claim that the majority of the cases identified are contacts of other COVID-19 patients. It is under this situation that we further consider this as a cluster. We control the spread on that basis. If we consider this as a community spread, we will have to completely change our approach of containing the virus. Everyone's opinion is that now is not the time to do that. The Minuangoda cluster has been completely contained now. Through that, we feel that although the entire world has reached a dangerous position with regard to the virus, we have created a situation where we can remain safely.
ඒ හරහා මං හිතනවා මොනතරම් දරුණු තත්වයකට ලෝකයේ පුරා මේ රෝගය පැතුරුණත් අපිට ආරක්ෂා සහිතව ඉන්න පුළුවන් තත්වයක් තියෙනවා.
According to the commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, 2 villages, Alutpota in Monragala and Thotavatta in Panudura, have been declared as isolated areas. Meanwhile, the Department of Government Information said 420 new COVID-19 cases were reported so far today. Of the total, 352 are associates of the Paliaguda cluster, while 68 are from prisons. There are 33,898 confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country as of now. The total recoveries stands at 24,867, while 8,877 active patients continue to receive treatment.
A number of countries, including Maldives and Singapore, have already taken steps to purchase COVID-19 vaccines and provide it to the general public free of charge. State Minister Sudarshini Fernandopulle today appointed a special committee to look into bringing down a suitable vaccine to Sri Lanka. 4 vaccines will be considered initially. The State Minister has advised the specialist committee to examine the vaccines produced by Oxford, Pfizer, Sputnik 5 and Sinovac and compile a report. The American Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine bears a price tag of $20. The vaccine must be stored at a temperature of -70 degrees Celsius. Sputnik 5 was produced by a Russian company and is only used in Russia. This vaccine cost $10. Coronavac was produced by a Chinese company called Sinovac and is in its 3rd phase of clinical trials. The vaccine is valued at between $14 and $30. The vaccine was produced by the Oxford University in the United Kingdom, and AstraZeneca Institute can be stored in an average refrigerator. The vaccine is valued at $4 US. We are taking preliminary steps to bring down these vaccines to the country. We will get these vaccines with the intervention of the World Health Organization. We are preparing the basic infrastructure facilities for the distribution of this vaccine. This process will continue. When Sri Lanka receives this vaccine, we will take steps to vaccinate certain groups in the country. We have appointed a committee for that as well. We have tasked them to look into the logistics of this. We have given them details on who this should be used on. We have given the committee the power to make a final decision on all of these. We will receive a report on this matter soon, and we will act according to the report. Leading professionals in the health sector are contributing to these efforts. This current government has failed to get a good quality vaccine for the general public of this country. What has happened because of this delay, we are now unsure as to if Sri Lanka will be at the end of the line in getting this vaccine. A new level of poverty has been created by COVID. In a tweet, the Foreign Minister of Maldives, Abdullah Shahid, said President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has made a special request to the Maldives government to assist Sri Lanka in facilitating Islamic funeral rites in the Maldives for Sri Lankan Muslims succumbing to the COVID-19 virus. The Maldives Foreign Minister added that the President of the Maldives, Ibrahim Mohammed Solih, is consulting stakeholder authorities of the government of Maldives in this regard.
Minister, the question that we want to raise is that yesterday the Maldivian Foreign Minister says that they received a request from Sri Lanka, and they say specifically from the Sri Lankan President, to bury Sri Lankan Muslims who die of COVID to be buried in the Maldives. So has the government of Sri Lanka actually made that request to the Maldives?
Well,
to
my knowledge, and as a cabinet spokesman, we have never discussed anything at the cabinet that sort. What we heard was that there was deputation made to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister has looked at it in a usual manner as the Prime Minister.
Do you think that the Maldivian Foreign Minister, is he misinformed, or is he sort of jumping the gun? Why do you think that the Foreign Minister of a neighboring country
after clarifying from the
would actually use the name of the Sri Lankan President to say that a request has been made?
I understand that. I mean, that's a serious thing. So, as far as we are concerned, at the cabinet, nothing was discussed yesterday. But I'll definitely verify that and come back to you.
Meanwhile, Dhammika Bandara from Kegol, the founder of the anti-COVID-19 tonic, visited Kandy today. During his visit, he paid homage to the temple of the sacred tooth relic and called on the Mahanayaka of the Askari chapter of the Siam sect. Subsequently, Dhammika Bandara called on the registrar of the Askari chapter, Venerable Madagama Dhammananda Thero.
Researchers at the University of Colombo have discovered a new species of bird. The new species has been named the Hanuman plover.
The new bird species is considered as a subspecies of the Kentish plover, also known as the Charadrius alexandrinus. The researchers have decided to name the new species as the Hanuman plover to signify the affinity of Hanuman into the Rama's bridge and critical areas for shorebirds in Sri Lanka. The discovery was made by Dr. Sampath Senviratne from the Department of Zoology and Environmental Sciences at the University of Colombo, Professor Yang Liu from China, and undergraduate research student Jude Janitha Niroshan. Dr. Sampath Senviratne said the new bird, also known as a shorebird, was located from the shoreline of Sri Lanka close to Mannar, Jaffna and Hambantota district wetlands, as well as the chain of islands from Mannar to Koneswaram in India.
We discovered a new species of bird. It's a shorebird found in the shoreline, especially in the Arizona of Sri Lanka, which is the Mannar, Jaffna and then the Hambantota district. And it's considered as a subspecies of Kentish plover, which is a breeding resident in Sri Lanka and southern tip of India. This for previously thought of subspecies of Kentish plover is actually a separate species. We call it the Hanuman plover. A small bird, white, very pretty, about the size of robin or a polkicha, and a bird that breeds on the wetland, on the ground in these areas, and a white bird, a kind of a unique bird in Sri Lankan ornithology, because very few birds are endemic to Sri Lanka and this region.
A number of families in the Mana district continue to suffer the disastrous consequences of Cyclone Buravi, which made landfall in Sri Lanka early this month.
220 families of the fishing community in Tewandipiti Mana have been left desolate since the cyclone destroyed all their fishing gear, including their boats.
Then අපේ දැල් ඔක්කොම බෝට් ඔක්කොම එන්ජින් ඔක්කොම නැති වෙලා තින්නේ අනිත් එක කැඩිලා තියෙනවා
අපේ බෝට් එන්ජින් කෙදර බඩු ඔක්කොම කියා අපිට මුකුත් නැහැ.
Families in Iluppei Kadavei and Vidatalathivu in Mana are also facing a similar situation. Water that inundated their houses due to the cyclone all the way back in early December has still not receded.
The people live near the sea in this area. The Mana district has been affected as a result of the Buravi cyclone that went across the country. We are providing cooked food and dry rations for these people. The Fisheries Department has carried out a preliminary estimate into the damage caused to the fishing equipment used by these people. That has to be provided to the ministry, and we hope to move on to the next step.
And with that, it's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1. Bringing you the news, I am Zayama Ratnayaka for the Newsfirst team, along with our sign language interpreter Brian De Cruz joining us via Zoom. Take care, stay safe, and good night.
You can now watch Newsfirst bulletins live on YouTube. That's not all. The developments of news stories can be found on our YouTube channel as well. All you need to do is click on the subscribe button down below. Stay tuned to News.